In the last video, I looked at what Michy had to say in his Endgame Technique book, part 6 on bearing in. Today, we're going to look not what he says, but what other people talk about, particularly Michy, ironically, the other Japanese expert, but also to some extent Gary Koscielny. I like the Sunny Florida Backgammon Club. I find them very helpful, and Gary Koscielny is a great teacher. Very simple one. He just starts with a position where we're trying to save the gammon. He just notes that it comes down to crossovers. So you could say, well, look, we'll get that rearmost checker in as far as we can and just put it in. To do that is a significant blunder, because now if our opponent takes 2 checkers off, we need doubles the next go, and we've got 6 rolls out of 36 will give us doubles. Whereas if we just take the 2 checkers, if we make 2 crossovers with the 5 and the 4, so we take the checkers in our 8 and our 7 points, and it absolutely matters not one jot which one goes the 5 and which one goes the 4, because the way we're saved, all the home board points are covered. So we'll put them in like this. That's our best option, because now any 6 will get us in the next go. Obviously 6s aren't brilliant, but we've still got 11 chances of a 6, and I think there's another 4 doubles we'll get in as well. So we've got 15 out of 36 chances of getting in like that, whereas we only had 6 out of 36 if we required doubles. So Gary Koscielny's point is just basically, in a situation like this, you just use the dice to make crossovers, to limit the amount of doubles you need. He then goes on to give a different position here, where you roll a 2-1. Again, you're trying to save the gammon. Well, the 2, I think it's straightforward. We're going to go 8 to 6 with the 2 and bring it in. It's where do we roll the 1? We have choices. We can roll 3 to 2, or we can take that check on the 10 point and move it in one further. And they debate this for some time in the Sunny Florida Backgammon Club, and they come to the conclusion that if you don't do the 3 to 2, well, then any 2 or any 1 really costs you. So you're better off rolling the 3 to 2. But there's the original position again. Michy I'm just going to bring in Michy now at this stage, because he's a really clever little trick. He calls it his counting trick for dealing with a situation like this. So again, the 2 is obvious. You're going to go 8 to 6. But what do you do with the 1? And if you can see it there again, it's the Sunny Florida Backgammon Club. We're saying, well, look, if you don't bring it 3 to 2, well, then any 2 or any 1 in the next go, you're not getting in. Michy makes it so much simpler. He just said, let's just strip it down. Let's just look at the checkers that matter. So we'll take the checkers off the 6 point. We'll take the checkers off the 5, the 4 point. We'd even take 2 of the checkers off the 3 point, because really what we're deciding here is which of those checkers that are left are we moving the 1. We've played the 2, so it's just the roll of the 1 on the dice that we're trying to play. And he takes this little counting trick and say when you think about it, we need a 4 here at the moment to get in and save the gammon. And he says the chances of saving the gammon are the same, when you think about it, as the chances of winning the game in that position. So I've just taken, we needed a 4 to cross over to get into our home board. Now we need a 4 to get off to win the game. So he says it's the same thing, really, whether the checker is out in the home board. And now it's fairly straightforward where you play the 1, because you wouldn't do 4 to 3 and put 2 checkers in the 1 point. That was in a previous video. He said that's not the way to play it. Instead, you'd move the foremost point forward 1, and that gives us a much better chance. I think there's 23 chances there getting off if we get another shot. So I like that approach of Michy. He says just strip it down to the 2 checkers, and then the chance of bringing a checker into the home board is the same as if it was in the home board and you're trying to see, well, what are the chances of bearing it off. So let's give you a practice question of that. Now, this is from Michy himself. The last position was from Gary Koscielny. This is from Michy himself. Again, a 2-1 to play. How do you play it? If you want to pause and unpause, well, your best bet here, the 2 is likely you're going to bring from 13 to 11. But where do you play the 1? Well, let's, again, strip it down, take out the other checkers, just leave the ones we're talking about. And again, the chances of rolling a 5 to get the checker into our home board are just the same as the chance of rolling a 5 to bear that checker off. So Michy's approach is just to look at it like this and say, well, what would you do now with a 1? Would you play a 4-3? which gives you 17 rolls out of 36 will get you off? Or would you play a 3-2, which gives you 19 rolls out of 36 to get off? You'd play a 5-2. And just remember, if you're not sure about that, I just ask you to go back and look at. I did one of the previous videos looks at this position bearing off and no contact. The video on bearing off and no contact with other experts deals with this, and a 4-3 gives you roughly a 43% chance of getting both checkers off. A 5-2 gives you a 52% chance of bearing off. So that's the logic. You just bring it back to where it was. Add in the other checkers, and then it's very clear that the 3-2 is the right move for the rest of it. Michy then goes on to talk about rules for bearing in, and a lot of it's very straightforward. He talks about aiming for a triangle shape, such as what a Trice would have done or Michy would have done. He talks about having no gaps in your 5 or a point or 5 or 4 point, and I'll come back to that. And he also said have no deep checkers. Don't place checkers in the 1 or 2 point. Just as Michy said, don't put checkers deep. So these next two slides I just took from my last video about what Michy said. That's the sort of ideal structure you want. That it's not necessarily a triangle, but we have plenty of depth at the back. That's the structure we don't want. And so we're trying to keep our checkers. Don't bury checkers deep. It's a simple thing. Michy in his seminar then in New York, it's a seminar he did in New York in 2022, which I saw and found on YouTube and found very helpful. Says don't have a full gap on a 5 or the 4 point. And this is the little concept now, the full gap. And what he means by that, if you look at this, we have a complete gap on our 5 point. He calls that a full gap. So when we play 6-1, you'd be, without thinking, clearing from the rear, you might say, and bringing checkers in efficiently, you might say, well, look, the best play for 6-1 is just 13-6 and 13-7 and 7-6. get the checker into our home board, but that is actually a blunder. We're far better off bringing 13-7 and closing that gap in our 5 point, because if we don't close it now, every 5 we roll is going to cost us a roll. So the correct move now is 6-5, and therefore we've closed. We don't have a full gap anymore. What Michy says is that a semi gap is fine. So that was a full gap. A semi gap, according to Michy, or how he classifies it, is where you have 1 point, one checker on that point. So if we look at, we had a spare checker on our 4 point, which we're going to bring back to and put in the 5. So now in this situation, we don't have a full gap in our 5 point. We have what's called a semi gap. And Michy says having a semi gap is okay. So we play the 13-7, and we could play 6-5, but instead we're better off playing 7-6 and bringing it in. We got another check on our home board. We're slightly more efficient, and that's where Michy was leaving it at the seminar, until in one of the audience was just Noel, Grandmaster, and he set it up from the back. The other thing is that 2 checkers on the bar point. So having 2 checkers on our 7 point is bad. Having 1 checker there is okay. So his words were 2 checkers on the bar point is bad, 1 guy is okay. And that kind of came out of the seminar. And if you look at it, that's if we had closed the semi gap and within bringing 6-5. Now, if you look at why Justin Noel says that is bad, and it's very obvious when you think about it, is if we were to roll a 6-1 again, or any big numbers, we're starting to bury checkers deep, place the checkers deep. And we've been saying all along that we don't do that. So if we rolled a 6-1 again, we'd have no choice. We'd have to play 6-1 with that. We could bring the last one in with that. But look, we've buried a checker deep that we didn't. It's wasteful that we didn't want to do. So instead, if we played the correct move, 6-1 like that, well, now the 6-1 is not so bad. We can bring it in with the 6 and just take it off, and it's much more efficient. Or even we could have gone 7-6 and 6 off. So this is just Noel's point, and I just thought it was really, really interesting and helpful. Leaving 2 checkers in the bar is not a good idea. So the way, looking at XG and looking at how it scored it, it's definitely don't leave a gap in the 5 point or the 4 point. Once that is resolved, try not to leave 2 checkers in the bar point, because it could be wasteful. Michy goes on then to talk about saving the gammon, and there's a couple of straightforward things. He said, look, get your checkers into your home board onto the 6 point if you can at all. So get them into your home board. By get to the 6 means get them into your home board if you can at all. Don't waste any pips if you can at all. But there is a but here to this. Count the number of rolls and crossovers, the number of rolls that are available to you, and the number of crossovers that you have to make, and then adjust your plan accordingly. Um, and sometimes, Grant Hoffman says, sometimes you have to do the thinking bit, and that this applies to the situation. And Michy gives this example here where you've got 3 and a 2. You could say the most efficient use in terms of pips of rolling a 3 and a 2, you roll 5 in total, is to take the checker on the 11 point and bring it into the 6 point, like that. That's very efficient. But what's left is you're going to run out of crossovers. You only made one crossover with those 2 rolls. And this late in the game, when we're trying to save the gammon, if you look at it here, look at our rearmost checker. It needs to go 1, 2, 3 crossovers to get into the home board. We have 2 more checkers that need a crossover each to get in the home board. That's 5. And then we need a crossover to bear off. That's 6. So we need exactly 6 crossovers to save the gammon. And we will, if assuming our opponent doesn't roll a double, well, we've got exactly 6 dice. We'll roll 3 times 6 dice. So for that reason, we need to cross over where we can with each roll. So the correct move is to go look at our rearmost checker and move that forward to 3. And then if you look at the checker on our 7 point, bring it in. Yeah, it's wasting a pip, but do you know what? We now only need 4 crossovers to get around, and hopefully we have 4 rolls. We're not strong favourites. We're a better chance. And so if you look at it, the 11 to 6 roll is a 63 millipoint. It's the 5th option. I don't know why one of them came up in red there, but 11 to 6 was in 5th in the list for what we should do in terms of moving the checkers in. Michy took that position and put an extra checker on the black 1 point, so that we're going to get an extra roll hopefully out of this. It's tighter now, but we're still slightly better to say, look, we've got a chance of 2 crossovers, take 2 crossovers. And then the final thing from Michy was just sometimes it's okay to waste a pip or 2 now to avoid wasting pips later on. And this I'm rattling through this, it might be worth kind of going back over this or looking at Michy's seminar. It's the New York Metro Tournament in 2022. But I'm doing a rapid fire because we only got a few minutes in this video. But what he's talking about is this situation here. So we roll a 5-2. We're trying to save the gammon. So the 5 is forced. We have to come off the bar with the 5. But then what do we do with the 2? You could move from 20 to 18 with the 2. But look at the checkers on our 7 point. We need to bring them in. And it'd be far more efficient to bring them in with a low number into our home board than a high number. And 2 is a relatively low number. So the way Michy put it is the chance of us rolling 3 1s to get them nice and neatly in from the 7 to 6 point in the next 3 rolls, it's just not very likely at all. But 2 is not bad. 2 will get one of those checkers into our home board relatively cheaply. So instead of doing we have to come off the board, but instead of moving it from 20 to 18, we're better off just moving one of those checkers in from 7 to 5. Yes, it's not 100% efficient, but it's not bad, and it gets a checker in. And so that's Michy's point really here was, with low numbers, if we've got a lot of checkers on our ace point, on our bar point to bring in, use the low numbers to bring them in. And I appreciate this is probably fairly not going to happen fairly regularly, but I just thought it was interesting and thought a good thing for us to know. And as we studied the game, it's not a bad little kind of trick just to be. It'll get us thinking in the right direction. Michy goes on to say, well, look, instead of rolling 5-2, what if we rolled, where you can see it's an absolute blunder, huge blunder, not to use the 2 rolls to get one of the checkers into our home board. He said, what if we roll a 5-3? And again, crossovers is no problem because we're going to roll 2 crossovers whatever we do. But if you were to roll the 5-3, it's still slightly better to get one of the checkers in our 7 point in, like that. So come off with the 5, and one of the checkers in the 7 points comes in. Still slightly better. It's a 26 millipoint error not to do that, because again we're getting it not perfectly efficiently, but not bad. If we went to 5-4, no, we're better off now just coming the way around because with 4 we're starting to bury our checkers deep, which is precisely what we're trying not to do. So that's it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to look at another aspect of saving the gammon, a really interesting lesson I saw with Grant Hoffman, and I'll be talking to you about that soon.